And now it's time to preview an upcoming game.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be putting together a tree. We're going to be putting together the trunks, all the branches of the trees. We're going to be putting leaves connected to each other. We're going to be putting buds, flowers. There's going to be some beetles involved. Today we're looking at a very interesting 3D game called Grow, the organic building game. This is on a Kickstarter preview right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how it's played, and then I'll see you on the other side. Here's the base of the tree in Grow. Let's take a look at some of the other components. Here we have 5 stacks of 8 leaves each. Each one of these is going to be a season. For a 5-season game, it will take about 60 minutes. And for a 3-season game, it'll take about 20 minutes. There's also 2 stacks of branches, and there's a certain amount of these depending on how many seasons you're playing. We've got some beetles here, we've got a die, and over here we have the 4 different player colors of buds and flowers. Let's talk about how a turn works. Now a turn goes through 4 phases, but at the beginning of the game, the first turn, you're really only doing 2 different phases of the game. The first thing you'll do pretty much at the beginning is you'll take a branch here and you will be able to place it on the tree in any of these spots. So maybe I go here. Now if that was already there from a previous turn, again, you can place it on any of the spots. Here are the branches, or you can also build off other branches as well. And this is a mandatory move that everybody has to do, branches. 1 branch per turn. The next phase is taking actions. You can take one of 3 actions. One of the actions you can take is putting a leaf on. Now you can put a leaf on any of the open branches, or sometimes, let's say that this leaf was there from an earlier turn, someone else could take a leaf and build it off here like this as well. Now let's just say that that was already there, this leaf went there. Anytime you build a leaf, you get to take a bud of your color and put it in front of you, which you'll be able to use on subsequent turns. Instead of putting a leaf, maybe it's the orange player's turn, and they had gotten one of these on a previous turn. So for one of the actions, instead of placing a leaf, you can place a bud. And you just have to place the bud on any leaf that, number 1, is not what we call locked down. We'll talk about that later. And it can't go on a leaf of something that already has another bud on it. So in your action phase, if you didn't want to put a leaf, if you didn't want to put a bud, maybe there's another player. The one other thing they can do is if they have one of these beetles, we'll talk about how to get these later, they can use these to either attack or defend. If this was somebody else's bud, they could essentially attack it with this beetle, and both this and the beetle is removed from the game. If I was orange later on, and let's just say there was a flower here, we'll talk about how those get there in just a moment, you could actually put the beetle there to protect this flower to ensure that nobody else can destroy it. However, you can only have 3 beetles out on the board at once. So those are the 3 actions you can take. At the end of that phase, if it's the end of a season, you roll a die to see what might happen, but we'll go over that later. Now let's talk about the beginning of the turn once more. So let's say it's gone through a couple turns of a round, and at the beginning of your turn, if you have an open bud, you can place a flower on it. And this is good because that's how you end up scoring points in this game, is having buds with flowers on them. Now you also will get one of these beetles when you create a flower, and I've showed you what the beetles do just previously. Now, that's always the beginning of your turn. You look to see if there's any open buds. You put a flower if so, and then you go through the turns again by mandatorily putting another branch and then doing one of those 3 actions, and that just continues. Now, in placing buds, there's an interesting thing to point out here. Let's say we have these leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves here, and you place a bud like so. Now, let's say that was there, and then at the beginning of your next turn, you got to put a flower there. When that happens, this essentially locks down all the flowers that goes to the nearest branches. So that means this, 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 and this, because this is going to the branch here, are locked down, which means nobody can put buds on any of those leaves. Now this is hanging off, and this isn't necessarily touching that lowest thing, so this could get a bud on it, but none of these ones could, because there's a flower, and you pretty much walk down all the way to the nearest branch, and those are locked down, and you cannot place buds, so it's a way to block your opponents out. One more thing about putting flowers. So at the beginning of the turn, I told you that if you have a bud, you can place a flower there. And one more thing to note is that if I was the yellow player and I got to place the flower on this bud, it also destroys any other color bud on the same leaf. So if you get the flower first, the orange leaf would come off, and get destroyed. And so you would basically take over that because you were both on the same leaf, but you got to the flower first. Now let's say it was my turn, and for my action, remember one of the actions you could do is do a beetle. And again, if I was the blue player, I could use the beetle to protect my flower. I could use the beetle to destroy either any flower or bud from another player. And if there's a beetle that, like this, the orange player has the beetle protecting this, I can use this beetle to kill this beetle. And then that one is no longer protected. And maybe someone after me before the orange player can come in and now take the flower out, and that will stop him from scoring that flower there. Now remember, there's 5 seasons if you play the full game, and the season ends once all the 8 leaves are gone for that stack. And then what's going to happen is you're going to roll a die. Depending on what this die is, an event will happen that will do something different. There's 6 different events, one for each of the numbers on the dice. For instance, if you roll a 1 at the end of a season, it's rain or shine. Everyone must grow 1 extra branch and 1 extra leaf on their next turn. In addition to their chosen action, you will still gain 1 bud after placing the extra leaf, and it happens for 1 turn. Or maybe if you rolled a 2, you have bee pollination, so all buds on the tree instantly bloom into flowers. You'll still receive 1 beetle for each flower gained during the event. And anyone that didn't bloom flowers will receive a free bud that must be used on their next turn in addition to their chosen action. So there's all sorts of different things that happen depending on the events at the end of a season. At the end of the game is once all the stacks from the seasons are gone, once the last leaf's gone, the game ends. And you count up points by looking at your flowers and how many leaves are connected to your flowers. For example, this blue flower is 1, 2, 3, 4 points because it's 4 leaves from the branch. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that blue flower would get 4 points for that one. He would also get 2 points for this one. 1, 2 leaves to his flower. So the blue player now has 6 points, and that's his total score. And essentially you would score that for all the players, looking at how many leaves they had for each of the flowers they had. And the one who has the most points at the end is the winner. All right, well, there's Grow. Now, the copy that I had was a prototype, and I think it was a prototype for the collector's edition. So if you are going to be backing this on Kickstarter, make sure you read the print to which version you would get with the pledge level that you're doing, because there's different versions of the game that are on there. And again, this is on Kickstarter now, and obviously, the thing that this has going for it, Grow, is it's very unique. I don't ever remember playing or seeing anything like it before. It's a one-of-a-kind game. It's one of those games where you're playing it and you're at a table and people are going to start walking around, watching what you're doing, asking what you're doing. It looks like you're building a sculpture, you're building a tree, you're building a piece of art, and it's gonna involve people walking over and asking what you're doing. So I think it's unique. That's the biggest thing that this has going for it. Plus, a lot of people like to build things. They like to be able to be done with the game, step back and look what they've built. And every time you play this game, it's going to look different. The tree will look different at the end of every game. You can take pictures of them and look at them later. You can just leave it set up in your game room, set up in your living room. Shoot, it looks so nice. So it's unique. It looks like a piece of art. It's got a little abstract, some good decisions on whether you're going to, help your bud stay there with the beetle or attack somebody else's, and all sorts of interesting things like that. So if this looks interesting to you, I'm sure they would love your support. There'll be a link coming out just below me right at the end of this video. You click on that link, it will bring you to the Kickstarter page, and I'm sure the people who made Grow, the organic game, the organic building game, would love your support.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.